Hey YouTube, today's my lucky day. You guys clicked on my video. Today I'm going to teach you about one of the most elusive of all the German handmade marbles, in my opinion. The brushed Indian, or the Indian swirl. I actually like the term brushed Indian, but I feel it's quite controversial. Get into that with you here in a minute. Anyways, I'd like to thank you for your time, for spending it with me here. And I'm going to share this guy with you. This is one of my favoritist Indians. Favoritist. You like that? Absolute best. Maybe, maybe not. There's just so many colors on this one. And I actually had a lifetime marble collector trying everything to get this off of me once upon a time, so I think other marble collectors appreciate the beauty of this marble, so I'm going to share it with the whole world here, and we'll get into these elusive marbles. So, here they are, and in my opinion, folks, I've never met anybody that has a nicer collection of these. These are what I've always been after, because I never seen them. In the 70s, an old man opened a gun case for me. It was plumb full of these, and I've been hooked ever since. So, why I say these are so controversial is a brushed Indian or an Indian swirl. Now, you have to remember, this is all just my opinion, and it's just the knowledge I've picked up along the way. And I'll show you, most Indians are always black, and some Indians have a surprise. You can put them onto a Maglite flashlight, or any flashlight, and illuminate them. And some of them will be a dark blue, cobalt, or a purple glass. That's where the term Maglite Indian or Mag Indian came from. Indian swirl marbles are German handmade glass marbles. They're not to be confused with actual clay Indian artifact marbles. So get that out of the way, and we'll go over some of the ways you can tell you have an Indian marble here. First thing, like any German handmade, an Indian swirl is going to have, or brushed Indian, will have pommel marks on the end of the glass. Now it's going to be black or dark glass that you cannot see through, people, so the pommel marks may be a little more difficult to recognize. And kind of the reason why I like the term brushed Indian so much better than Indian swirl is because if you look at these, the characteristics of the colors of the glass, it looks like it was brushed on the exterior of the cane before it was twisted. So to me, a swirl marble always has the colors of the glass encapsulated within the glass, or multiple colors swirled together. So this marble to me looks like it was round, and somebody took a paintbrush and laid those fine angel hair strands of glass onto the base glass, which was black. So here's another brushed Indian. They are not all black too. This would be on a transparent base, a caramel base. And you can see how those colors look like they're brushed on the glass. Now, a lot of you people, by no fault of your own, and I actually purchased these off of eBay that I'm getting ready to show you, and they were listed as something they were not. This would be a brushed transparent Indian, in my opinion. Now, there's another marble called a Cornhusker. Here it is. Ta-da. This is a Cornhusker. Now this swirl was laid in this glass, in my opinion, and is totally different than the orange one. This is a German handmade Cornhusker, not a brushed Indian. And it's pretty beat up also. And you can see, one of the reasons I chose, under the chip, you can actually see the white glass, if the camera will focus, on a corn husker. Here we go. Can you guys see that white glass under the caramel glass? So a corn husker is not a brushed Indian. I'll grab the brushed Indian again and let you take a look at it. There you go. Colors on the exterior of the base glass. One of your identifications for an Indian. So if that helps you guys identify the German handmade elusive Indian marble, if anybody has these, or their friends say, hey, I got a way better collection, I would love for you to share them. Even if you only have one or two, send me a link. I would love to see your Indian swirls. Some are, I don't really know if I would call this side definitely looks like an Indian swirl. Brushed Indian. You come over here, then it's, here we go. Now you can see it. Look at the chip, it focuses right in on that. Isn't that horrible? But I'm happy to have it there. Never polish these things, folks. So this is blue and green, brushed Indian, black base. There's a lot of colors in this one. The more colors you can find in these brushed Indians, the higher price they'll command. That's why. Little peewee here I showed you, which is not actually truly a peewee. This guy right here. That's not actually truly a peewee, because this is a 50 cal casing. And if it was truly a peewee, in my opinion, this would go right inside here. A peewee is anything under a ½ an inch, folks. Just to clear that up, one of my other viewers said they'd never heard the term peewee. Peewees are now my favorite marbles, and they will be yours too if you're a collector, because once you get so many of these, you can put a lot more peewees in a case than you can a handful of giant shooters. So, here's another marble that someone tried to call a Lutz Indian. And this is not a Lutz Indian, this is a Lutz swirl. The Lutz is the sparkly stuff in there. Someone got after this one and polished it up a little bit. They left the panel marks at least, but this one was polished, I do believe. Now, once again, in the late endings of the 1890s or so, polishing started becoming more widely available in this trade, and some of these really high-end marbles were polished before they left the factory, folks. So if there is the possibility you find one out there and the panel marks look buffed up, and they came that way from the artisan back in the day. So don't think that any polishing is not to be expected on super high-end marbles. So anyhow, here's another one that I would not call a Lutz Indian. Maybe I'm wrong. If you know more about these things than I do, please post up and correct me on anything here, because this is heritage of antique toys, and I want to make sure that if I tell you guys something, it's true and accurate. So this little guy here is really nice. It's beautiful. I've seen Indians where you can't even hardly see the base glass, and the collectors wouldn't even let me touch them. They're like, get away from it. So I do believe these are highly prized. This is my friend made this locally. He knew I liked these, so he gave this to me one day as a surprise. Made this one here. This is a contemporary marble. This is the only contemporary marble in this pile. But I just wanted to call that out so there's no BS on my channel. If so, I'll call it out and let you know for all you slow coaches that don't catch it. Now this is something that a guy didn't even want, and it's probably one of my most prized Indians, next to, of course, we can't forget this little guy right here with all the colors on it. So we'll set these two together here just so you can take a look at the size difference. One of the reasons why large Indians are very, very difficult to find, This is an end-of-day large Indian. It's a handmade marble. There's only one Pownal mark on it, right here, which meant the maker picked this up and laid all these colors of glass. It was the only one to be made. This is something someone would do at the end of the day that made these, or would pick up the scrap glass, and it would be one of a kind. There's actually Maglite base right here. I tried to see if I could get this to focus with the camera for you on my smartphone, but I can't get a flashlight in here and get it to function. The other half of it is black glass on the other side. So it's a really unique, interesting Indian. This is the only what I would call end-of-day Indian I've ever even seen in 30 years. So I'm sharing it with you guys. I know it looks a little fugly and craggly in places, but this would be just unbelievably fine if you could find one of these somewhere. And the price you're going to have to pay for it is whatever you're going to have to pay to get somebody to cut loose of it, because, you know, this one ain't going to be available till I'm on to the next thing in the next place. So anyhow, folks, this is the Indian marble. So on the opposite end for yin and yang, one more before we get to yin and yang that I bought as an Indian off of eBay, and I'm not upset about any of these transactions. You know, a lot of people don't know. Here is a transparent swirl. It was sold as an Indian, and I don't think anybody bid on it, because when somebody just lists Indian marble, most people think they're clay. So anyhow, I just thought I would share that with you. This is not an Indian, and maybe I can put it right here next to these two guys. And if I zoom in real good, you might be able to see the difference in the glass, how that glass goes into the base glass, to where these Indians, you can almost always see it looks like somebody took a dry paintbrush and drug it across the glass. Now, here's an exception. Maybe somebody had a heavy hand. Maybe somebody wants to call this one an opaque swirl. I don't really know. So that's going to be the yang. I'm going to show you guys clams broth marbles and opaque swirls here in a second. That's the other world of this, opposite end of the rare German handmades. Not that they're all not rare, but the Indian swirls, brushed Indians, clams broth, and opaque swirls are going to be some of your rarest marbles that you can find out there for German handmades. And I'll even throw in a gooseberry at the end, so watch till the end here. These are opaque swirls and clams broth marbles. Clams broth is a certain type of glass. It was made a lot in like jewelry boxes and lady type things. Don't know a whole lot about that stuff, but there's a lot of clams broth glass and antique glassware, and it's also usually real fragile and beat up. And I'm going to get this big clams broth marble out just to show you. This is what they're usually going to look like when you find them, folks. This one's actually in pretty good condition. It's only got one ding on it, for being a clams broth marble. And if you notice, most of my marbles I show you guys are going to be pretty good condition. Clams broth marbles, every one of them I have has chips and dings in it. I have none that are pristine, because they're literally that rare and hard to find in good condition. So they come in every color of opaque glass with these beautiful thin stripes on the exterior. They're going to have a Pownal mark, just like any German handmade will have. They're going to be on both ends, both axes of the marble. And an opaque swirl. You say, well, why is this not a brushed Indian? It looks like a brushed Indian. I don't know. If you want to call it an albino brushed Indian, I'm all cool with that, because that marble is literally that cool. I don't know if you want to call it a brushed. It's an opaque swirl for sure, but it's just fun to discuss and look at these things. These are some rare marbles, and I don't know, a lot of times, you guys, you find the rare marbles just tossed in someone's stuff, and they don't know anything about them because they've never seen them before either. So, anyhow, this one was found in a lot of costume jewelry. It's one of my favorites because I like green, and these guys are usually never really round either. This one, this big flat spot on the bottom, is actually the Pownal mark. Can you imagine being a kid getting this onion-shaped thing out of the box and trying to roll it, and the first time it hits the next marble, it splatters into pieces? So I don't imagine in the day when marbles were the thing, and y'all didn't have a smartphone or YouTube, the only thing you could do was go hustle the slow coach neighbor kid that wasn't too good with his marbles. You know, these were a sought-after thing in the day, and kids didn't respect the ones that didn't stay together or roll straight, so they always kind of went to the wayside. And I believe that's why those are a little bit rare. Okay, these back four, my friend made those. They're contemporaries. Like I said, I'll never try to bamboozle you people. Contemporary, 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 contemporary. 1, 2, 3, 4. Everything else on this rack is vintage German handmade. So here's the surprise. We'll get around here. Here's your gooseberry. A gooseberry, it's not a clam's broth. It's not a brushed Indian. It's not a corn husker. It's a gooseberry. And you ask, well, what makes it a gooseberry? Well, the gooses sure don't eat it. And if they do, you can find it in a few days later in a little meadow muffin fertilizer bomb. So, the gooseberry. This would be a clam's broth marble in a caramel transparent base. Has these fine lines laid down on the exterior of it. And these are rare as hen's teeth. It's got some air bubbles inside it. That's the gooseberry. In case you didn't know, there was gooseberries out there, folks, and they do not expire. Gooseberries are as good as anything. Back down to the clam's broth. And I seen one of these at a marble show. It was probably 7 or 8 color strands on the clam's broth glass. It was almost perfect. And I believe at the end of the auction, it was around $3,500. It was close to an inch. So, to let you know, if you find any of these in large sizes that are nice and pristine, they just command a premium price. Now, this is a clam's broth here that has the beautiful, beautiful white glass. So, then we could come around the corner here, and you could argue that this next guy right next to it is an opaque swirl. That's not a clam's broth. So, you know, if you're going to sell these marbles on eBay, guys, you really need to know how to list a German handmade. If you know it's a German handmade, that's all you got to put on it. Let the people buying it decide what it is, and just list it as German handmade if it has Pownal marks on it. Because you could list it as one thing and send it to somebody, and the seller sends something back, or the buyer, excuse me, says, hey, not as described, and you're out your money and your marbles. That's how people are losing their marbles, folks. So, if you're going to hustle these online, make sure you know what you're doing. I say keep it plain and simple, and just list them as German handmaids, because I don't claim to be an expert, but I have 30 years of experience in this, and I still don't know what I'm doing sometimes, so. Anyways, there was a saying for that, Lima Lima Mike Foxtrot, but anyhow. Here's some more opaque swirls, and none of these are clam's broth, with the exception of one. I'm going to go around here and let y'all look at them. Maybe you can figure out which one it is. There is a clam's broth on here. Here it is. I would say it's this one here. Oh, now I can't get the camera to focus. Ta-da. Here's one that would be probably a Pee-wee, and it's got all this garbage caught in it when they made it, and the guy didn't get the stripes on it good. And here's some other lavender lass that's got some Lutz in it. And if you don't know what Lutz is, this phone, I'll get a good camera one day, folks. If you guys give me enough thumbs up and I get enough subscribers, one day I'll get a real camera and make some videos that do these things justice. But if you don't remember what the Lutz is, I'll bring you back to a Lutz marble here, and that's that copper sparkly stuff. Looks gold or copper in the marble. There we go. See if we can get this one to focus in on it now for you. But this would be a really rare thing, and the guy that had it just gave it to me. He said, I can't sell a marble looking like that. And I said, well, let me give you something for it. And he said I entertained him. That was worth it enough. So he gave me this to go away, probably. Anyhow, it was a good score. Sorry I can't get that to... Oh, look at that. Losing my marbles. So, as you can see, an opaque swirl. Are you seeing the difference? The lines aren't the same. They're not consistent. The clams broth will have consistent spacing around the edge. I wouldn't call this a clams broth. A lot of you are going to argue with me and say, oh yeah, it's a clams broth. But then look, get over here and you got these big giant patches, and that's where it starts becoming a swirl. So the clams broth was the best marble artisan that could lay those fine little angel hair strands down consistently around that marble. This, if you're trying to pawn this off as a clams broth and you sold it to me, I would say no go. I would call that one a swirl, but like I said, that's my opinion. It's probably more than likely even clams broth glass, but like I said, it's my opinion. And here's my buddy's marbles. Give him a little credit here. You can check these guys out. I'm sure some of you probably like this one. This one looks a little Fruit Loops to me, but here's your Lutz in the center. And this would be, if you were talking about German handmaids, and this was a real German handmade, this would be an impression of a caged solid core right here. Lutz. So, anyways, that's what type of marble this would be. And his impression of this one was supposed to be a clams broth, but as you can see, folks, it's not. Like he said, he couldn't get his stripes that little and fine. He said it's an art. He's not quite there yet, but he did real good on this other one here. So I'll turn it around and let you check this one out. He did real good on this one. And here, we'll get both these off here. You'll like this. Here's a good way to educate y'all so maybe you don't get duped. I don't want anybody out there getting duped, paying high dollar for a marble, because you could probably, off a contemporary guy, you could probably buy 10 or 20 of these for what one of these are going to cost you. This good old German handmade here. And we'll get this contemporary in here right side by side. And I'm going to zoom in on it and do you guys a justice. You look at that nice shiny glass, and you look at the glass of the German handmade. You can clearly see the difference on those two marbles, folks. There we go. Good old LG phone pulling it together there at the end. So, on the right, you got a contemporary. On the left, you got an extremely desirable black glass clams broth with these beautiful white stripes on the exterior of that marble. So this one, I would call this one, just because it's a clams broth minus this right here. If you didn't have those missing lines, and that's not a chip, those are actual just missing lines off of that marble where they didn't get laid down, I would say that that's as good of a condition clams broth as you would find in today's world. And the old-timers always used to share with me, they said, you know how all these German handmaids get all flea-bited, flea bites is when you look at them under a 20 magnification and you see little nicks and chips in the glass. That's called a flea bite, under 20 power, just so y'all know. They always said how those all got there was from all of us loco marble collectors carrying all these marbles around the country in jars, canning jars, from show to show, riding around in the car with hoopty suspension, bouncing down the road, getting all shooken to flea bite flea market. So anyways, if you're enjoying the German handmaids and you got a little education out of this, sorry if it got a little long and boring, but like I said, hey, these are my favorite marbles, so I wanted to share some of them with you. Have a good day. Thanks for your time. And like always, don't forget to thank a veteran for your freedom. Later.